Holly Sanchez was a 32-year-old mother of 5 living in Crawley, West Sussex, a town that often felt too small for the secrets it held. She had a warm smile that could light up a room, but in the months leading up to May 2023, that smile had grown rarer, hidden behind bruises she tried to explain away as clumsiness or accidents. Holly loved her children fiercely. They were her world, her reason to keep going, even when everything else felt like it was crumbling. Friends described her as kind-hearted, someone who would drop everything to help a neighbour or listen to a friend's troubles late into the night. But her relationship with Ryan Evans, a 31-year-old man from the same area, had slowly turned her life into a nightmare of control, fear, and escalating violence. Ryan Evans lived in a modest bungalow on Oates Walk in Crawley. On the surface, he seemed like any other local bloke, tall, with a sharp jawline and a way of carrying himself that demanded attention. But those who knew him better saw the volatility simmering just beneath. He had a temper that could ignite over nothing, a delayed text, a glance in the wrong direction, or simply Holly daring to have a life outside of him. Their relationship had started with the intensity that often masks danger. Passionate declarations, constant messages, promises of a future together. Ryan made Holly feel wanted at first, special in a way that filled the gaps left by the stresses of raising 5 kids on her own. But soon, the compliments twisted into criticisms. He didn't like her talking to other men, even old friends. He questioned her every move, demanding to know where she was, who she was with, and why she hadn't replied fast enough. By early 2023, the abuse had become physical. Ryan's jealousy fueled outbursts that left marks on Holly's body. Neighbours on Oates Walk heard the arguments echoing through the thin walls of the bungalow. Raised voices, slamming doors, the occasional crash of something breaking. One neighbour later recalled seeing Ryan punch Holly in the face on the street, calling her a disgusting cuff while she begged him to stop. Another incident was captured on a doorbell camera. Ryan dragging Holly by her hair along the pavement, her pleas audible even through the grainy footage. These weren't isolated events. They were part of a pattern of coercive control that left Holly isolated, anxious, and increasingly dependent on the man who was destroying her. On April 18th, 2023, Holly finally reached a breaking point. She spoke to the police in a 40-minute interview, her voice trembling as she described the horrors. Ryan had burned her with a cigarette during one rage-filled evening, pressing the lit end into her skin as punishment for some perceived slight. She detailed the beatings, the threats, the way he monitored her phone and isolated her from family. "I'm scared he'll kill me if he finds out I've talked to you," she told officers, her eyes wide with genuine terror. She begged them not to let him know she'd grasped. The police took her statement seriously enough to arrest Ryan on April 26th for the allegations of abuse, including the cigarette burn and other assaults. He denied everything, of course, painting Holly as unreliable or dramatic. Despite the evidence, then he was released on police bail with strict conditions, a no-contact order prohibiting him from approaching or communicating with Holly in any way. For a brief moment, Holly felt a flicker of relief. The bail condition was meant to give her space to breathe, to rebuild, to protect herself and her children. But the system that was supposed to safeguard her had cracks wide enough for a killer to slip through. Ryan, furious at being restricted, found ways to test the boundaries. He sent messages through mutual contacts or showed up in places he knew she'd be, his presence a silent threat. Holly, torn between fear and the manipulative pull of their toxic bond, sometimes wavered. The day after her police interview on April 19th, she called officers back and retracted much of what she'd said. She claimed she was an alcoholic, and that her memories were fuzzy, and that she'd actually fallen out of a car, causing her injuries herself. It was a classic sign of coercive control, the victim protecting her abuser out of terror or misplaced loyalty. Police noted the retraction but kept the bail conditions in place, though enforcement proved lax in the days that followed. In the weeks after Ryan's arrest, Holly tried to maintain distance, focusing on her kids and small routines that brought normalcy. She was a devoted mum, cooking meals, helping with homework, and sharing quiet evenings watching films together. But the shadow of Ryan loomed large. Friends noticed she jumped at sudden noises, checked her phone obsessively, and avoided going out alone. "He won't let me go," she confided to one close confidant in a whispered conversation. "Even when he's not there, he's in my head." The no-contact order was supposed to prevent exactly this psychological grip, but Ryan's influence extended beyond physical proximity. Texts from unknown numbers, late-night calls from withheld numbers, these subtle violations chipped away at Holly's resolve. As May approached, the tension built. Ryan, still on bail, grew bolder. He began pressuring mutual friends to arrange accidental meetings, claiming he just wanted to talk, to sort things out. Holly received a flurry of indirect messages. "Ryan says he misses you," or "He's really sorry, give him a chance." She ignored most, but the isolation weighed on her. Being a single mum of 5 in Crawley wasn't easy. Money was tight, support networks thin, and the fear of Ryan finding out about any new steps she took kept her paralysed. On May 11th, 2023, something shifted. While Holly, perhaps seeking closure or succumbing to the familiar cycle, agreed to see him one last time. It was a decision born of exhaustion and the false hope that this time might be different. She told a friend she was just popping over to talk, downplaying the risk. No one knows the exact words exchanged in those final messages, but court evidence later revealed a pattern of communication that breached the bail conditions. Texts and calls where Ryan alternated between apologies and thinly veiled threats, pulling Holly back into his orbit. The evening of May 12th unfolded in the dim confines of Ryan's bungalow on Oates Walk. Holly arrived sometime in the late afternoon or early evening, her presence noted by neighbours who had grown accustomed to the drama but never imagined it would end in tragedy. Inside, and the air was thick with unspoken resentments. Ryan's controlling nature had always demanded total submission. Any hint of Holly's independence, her police report, her attempts to pull away, ignited fury. They argued, as they often did, about loyalty, about who she had been speaking to, about why she had betrayed him by going to the authorities. Ryan's voice rose, accusations flying like daggers. Holly tried to calm him, perhaps reminding him of the bail conditions, but that only fueled the fire. "You think the police can stop me?" witnesses later inferred from the pattern of his behaviour. The exact moment things changed came without warning, in the dead of night. It was some time after midnight, as the bungalow fell into an uneasy quiet. Ryan and Holly had been drinking. Holly's struggles with alcohol were known, and Ryan used it as another tool of control, encouraging her dependency while berating her for it. A final text or call might have preceded the shift, perhaps a message from Holly to a friend saying she was okay but tired, or a heated exchange with Ryan demanding she delete old contacts. But the turning point was visceral, Ryan's temper exploding into unrestrained violence. What started as shouting escalated to shoving, then punches. Holly, a slight woman against his stronger frame, fought back at first, but the assault was relentless. Over the course of hours, Ryan inflicted blow after blow, fists to her face and body, kicks when she fell, objects used as weapons in his rage. The post-mortem would later reveal 59 separate external injuries. bruises, lacerations, fractures. 5 ribs were broken, her left lung punctured and damaged, and leading to pneumonia that became the official cause of death amid the trauma. There were significant brain injuries so severe they resembled those from a high-impact car crash or a fall from height. Her hands bore defensive wounds, evidence she had tried desperately to shield herself. Ryan claimed in his 999 call the next morning that Holly had been fine when he went to sleep. He said he woke to find her unresponsive on the living room floor, her body cold. Paramedics arrived around 9 a.m. on May 13th, 2023, but it was too late. Holly was pronounced dead at the scene. Ryan's story unraveled quickly under scrutiny. He told officers she had turned up 2 days earlier with what looked like sunburn on her face, actually early signs of the abuse, and was bleeding from her nose and mouth. But forensic evidence painted a different picture. The injuries were fresh, clustered in a brutal, sustained attack consistent with him being the sole perpetrator. Neighbours' prior reports of violence, the doorbell footage of him dragging her, and Holly's own police statements formed a damning timeline. The no-contact order had been violated, and the system that released him on bail had failed to monitor or enforce it effectively. The trial at Lewis Crown Court in July 2024 laid bare the horror. Prosecutors detailed Ryan's campaign of coercive and controlling behaviour, isolating Holly, monitoring her, using violence to enforce compliance. He was convicted not only of murder but also of unlawful wounding, assault occasioning actual bodily harm, and controlling or coercive behaviour. The jury heard how Holly had feared for her life, how she had retracted her statement out of terror, and how the bail conditions, intended as a safeguard, proved tragically insufficient. Ryan maintained his innocence, insisting Holly's death was some mysterious accident, but the evidence of 59 injuries told the truth. In September 2024, he was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 21 years, later reported variably as 23 years accounting for specifics, minus time on remand. He would remain on license for the rest of his life, a small measure of justice for a life stolen too soon. Holly's family spoke movingly after the verdict, describing Ryan as a cruel and evil monster who had robbed their daughter and sister of her future. They urged other victims of domestic abuse to speak out, to seek help before it was too late. Holly was a loving mum who deserved better, one relative said. Don't suffer in silence. The case exposed deep failures in protecting victims of coercive control. Sussex police faced scrutiny from the Independent Office for Police Conduct, which issued recommendations for better handling of domestic abuse cases, improved monitoring of bail conditions, and faster responses to breaches. Why had the no-contact order not been more rigorously enforced? Why was Ryan released despite Holly's explicit fears? These questions lingered, highlighting systemic gaps where warnings were noted but not acted upon with enough urgency. Domestic abuse thrives in the shadows of such oversights, the deadly cost of underestimating the grip of a controlling partner. In the quiet streets of Crawley, Oates Walk became a place of whispered stories. My neighbours who had called police multiple times reflected on the what-ifs. Could earlier intervention have saved Holly? Her 5 children, now without their mother, carried the weight of loss no child should bear. Friends remembered her laughter, her resilience, the way she lit up talking about her kids' achievements. The final texts and calls, fragments pieced together in court, showed a woman trapped in a cycle, reaching out for connection even as danger closed in. One last message, perhaps, where she told Ryan she was coming over just to talk, or a call where his voice shifted from pleading to menacing. The exact moment things changed was not captured on camera or recorded in a log. It was the split second when Ryan's control snapped into lethal fury, when years of manipulation boiled over into the blows that ended Holly's life. She had survived previous attacks, retracted statements under duress, and navigated the minefield of bail conditions. But that night in the bungalow, the violence overwhelmed her. Her body, marked by 59 injuries, told the story her voice could no longer speak. This tragedy is a stark reminder of the hidden epidemic of domestic abuse and coercive control. Holly Sanchez was more than a statistic or a headline. She was a mother, a daughter, a friend whose life was cut short by a man who claimed to love her while systematically breaking her. The failures, police, support services, societal blind spots allowed the horror to unfold. In the aftermath, campaigns for better victim protection gained momentum with calls for stricter bail enforcement, mandatory training on coercive control, and community awareness to spot the signs early. So Holly's story echoes in similar cases across the UK and beyond, where victims report abuse only to face delays, retractions born of fear, and ultimately preventable deaths. As Crawley moved on, the bungalow on Oates Walk stood as a silent witness. Flowers and tributes appeared briefly, messages of love for Holly and anger at the system that let her down. Her children grew up without her hugs, her guidance, her fierce protection. Ryan Evans, behind bars, served his time, but no sentence could restore what was lost. The case prompted policy reviews by Sussex Police, aiming to close the gaps that let a man on bail with a no-contact order commit murder in his own home. Holly's legacy lives in the warnings she tried to issue. She told police she feared he would kill her, and he did. Her final days were a desperate navigation of love turned toxic, control disguised as care. The exact moment things changed remains etched in the injuries. The first punch that night, the escalation she couldn't escape. In telling her story, we honor her courage in speaking out, however briefly, and confront the uncomfortable truths about how easily protection can fail. The night of May 12th stretched long in that bungalow. Arguments gave way to silence, then to violence that built like a storm. Holly, exhausted from the emotional tug-of-war, perhaps tried to leave or de-escalate, but Ryan's rage had no off switch. Blows rained down, to her head, her torso, her limbs. She curled up, hands raised, but the assault continued until her body could take no more. Ryan, spent, claimed he slept through it all, waking to discover her. And the 999 call was calm at first, then panicked as reality set in. Paramedics found a scene of devastation, bloodstains, disarray, Holly's lifeless form on the floor. Forensic experts reconstructed the timeline. The injuries weren't from a fall or accident. They were deliberate, repeated. Brain trauma suggested repeated impacts. Rib fractures and lung damage pointed to crushing force, perhaps stomps or knees driven into her chest. The 59 external marks catalogued every strike, every grab, every burn or cut from the frenzied attack. Ryan had lied from the start, his story crumbling under cross-examination. The jury saw through the facade, delivering unanimous guilty verdicts. In the broader context, Holly's murder underscored the deadly intersection of coercive control and inadequate safeguarding. Coercive control isn't just physical. It's the erosion of autonomy through isolation, monitoring, threats, and intermittent affection that keeps victims hooked. Holly experienced it all. The jealousy that barred friendships, the demands for constant availability, the violence when she resisted. Her retraction after the April interview was textbook, fear overriding truth. Police, stretched thin, accepted it without deeper probing into the dynamics at play. The bail release, while standard, lacked the robust oversight needed for high-risk domestic cases. No electronic tagging, limited checks and breaches went under-pursued until it was too late. Advocates post-trial pushed for reforms, risk assessments that weigh coercive patterns more heavily, better interagency communication, and specialist domestic abuse courts. East Sussex Police implemented changes based on IOPC recommendations, including enhanced training and faster breach responses. Yet for Holly, these came after the fact. Her family channeled grief into awareness, sharing her story to empower others. If one person finds the strength to leave because of Holly, then her death won't be in vain, they said. Crawley, with its mix of suburban calm and underlying struggles, mourned quietly. Memorials at local parks or community centres honoured victims like Holly, reminding residents that abuse hides behind closed doors. Her 5 children, supported by extended family, learned to navigate life without their mum's voice cheering them on. The eldest perhaps remembered the arguments, the tension. The youngest carried only echoes. Ryan's sentencing hearing was emotional, as the judge described the murder as brutal, premeditated in its escalation, and a profound betrayal of trust. "You subjected Holly to a campaign of terror," the remarks noted, highlighting the 59 injuries as evidence of sustained savagery. The minimum term ensured he would be an older man before any chance of release, but freedom for him meant nothing to Holly's loved ones. Reflecting on the case years later, it serves as a cautionary tale. Domestic abuse kills, slowly through control, suddenly through violence. Holly Sanchez reported the cigarette burn, the beatings, her fears. She was on the radar, yet the protection promised fell short. The final texts and calls, those digital ghosts, revealed the pull. A message saying, "I'm scared, but I need to see you." Or Ryan's replies laced with manipulation. What the moment things changed was when words turned to fists, control to murder. Her story demands we listen better, act faster, and dismantle the systems that enable abusers. Holly deserves safety, not silence. In her memory, victims are encouraged to reach out. To friends, helplines like the National Domestic Abuse Helpline, or police with the knowledge that their words matter. Coercive control is now a specific offence in law, a recognition born from cases like this. The bungalow on Oates Walk has new occupants now, unaware or choosing not to dwell on its past. But the horror of May 2023 lingers in court records, news archives, and the hearts of those who knew Holly. She was 32, vibrant despite the pain, a mother whose love endured until her last breath. Ryan Evans stole that from her children, from the world. The Crawley horror exposed not just one man's evil, but the collective failure to shield the vulnerable. As awareness grows, so does hope that future Hollys will find the escape she couldn't. Her legacy is in the changed policies, the louder voices against abuse, and the quiet resolve of survivors everywhere. She tried to break free. The system must do better to ensure the next attempt succeeds. In the end, Holly Sanchez's story is one of courage amid terror, a call to action wrapped in tragedy. May her memory fuel the fight for a world where love doesn't kill,